Welcome back to the Exposure History channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. A woman operates the British bomb, a code-breaking machine used during World War II to decipher German messages. Built from Alan Turing's designs, it could test thousands of combinations in minutes, turning complex ciphers into readable text and helping the Allies stay one step ahead in the war of intelligence. A swirling funnel cloud twists ominously above the state capitol dome, caught just before touching down. Tornadoes like this are rare sights over city skylines, yet this one formed almost perfectly centered above the dome. American doctors surround Hideki Tojo, the former Japanese prime minister, after saving his life in 1945. He had shot himself in the chest in a failed suicide attempt, the bullet missing his heart by inches. The same men whose nation he attacked gave him their blood to keep him alive for trial and, ultimately, execution. Fishermen pose with a massive sturgeon in early 1900s, Russia. These river giants fed towns and supplied prized caviar. A single beluga could weigh hundreds of kilograms and outlive generations. In lean seasons, catches like this meant wages paid and storerooms filled. Austria, 1922, a fusion of creativity and craftsmanship. Aristocrats turned an old truck into a wooden mobile candy shop, complete with flower boxes and carved trim. It wasn't just transport, but a traveling marvel, one of the earliest glimpses of luxury on wheels. Edith Cleves Berry photographed this scene in 1913, Algeria. Kabyle Berber women carry water in clay amphorae balanced on their heads. The practice needs strength and careful balance taught from childhood. Their layered dark robes and head pads protect and steady the load, preserving a long tradition of daily life in Kabylie. Barcelona, 1922, inventor Raúl Pateras Pescara tests his experimental helicopter inside a hangar. Its twin coaxial rotors spun in opposite directions, eliminating torque and marking a breakthrough in early flight design. Though fragile, this machine achieved controlled hovering, one of aviation's first steps toward modern vertical flight. Students dressed in white gather on the school lawn for a May Day celebration, United States, 1923. With ribbons, flowers, and dance, they honor spring's arrival, a tradition blending joy and ritual. At the center stands the May Queen, crowned as a symbol of youth and renewal. Survivors of the Great Kanto earthquake crowd Shitaya Park in Tokyo, waiting for rice and relief. The air is heavy with smoke and dust as people in traditional robes gather under broken power lines. Despite the devastation, faces in the crowd show resilience and a will to endure. A Ford Model T sits wrecked on a quiet city street, its front wheels twisted and frame bent. Once hailed as the car that put America on the road, it now leans helplessly against the curb, a rare glimpse of early motoring mishaps in the age of roaring engines and cobbled roads. Albert Einstein stands before a group of students at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, 1946. Chalk in hand, he explains his theories to an audience of young black scholars. Known for supporting civil rights, Einstein often visited the university, calling education the gateway to freedom and equality. In Rio de Janeiro, photographer Leonardo Sens spent 3 years planning this moment, the supermoon rising perfectly behind Christ the Redeemer. The moon's glow crowns the statue like a halo, merging celestial timing with human devotion in one breathtaking frame above the city's iconic peak. Mary Vincent was only 15 when her life changed forever. In 1978, a man who offered her a ride in California turned violent, attacking her and severing both her arms. Left for dead in a ravine, she crawled her way to safety, a survivor whose courage would later help bring her attacker to justice. An aerial view of Manhattan around 1939 shows Central Park as a calm green heart surrounded by a maze of streets and buildings. The island's sharp grid stretches toward the skyline, where early skyscrapers rise, a snapshot of New York on the verge of its modern transformation. Immigrants aboard a ship cheer as the Statue of Liberty comes into view through the mist of New York Harbor. For many arriving in the 1880s, it was their first glimpse of America, a symbol of hope and a promise of new beginnings after long, uncertain journeys across the Atlantic. A family poses proudly outside their home in Detroit, Michigan, 1954. Behind them stands their new car, a symbol of post-war success. The modest house, the driveway, and the children playing out front capture an era when a single Ford factory job could build the American dream. Camberly Kate pushes her cart through the rainy streets of England, surrounded by dogs she rescued. Known for her kindness, she never turned away a stray, caring for more than 600 over her lifetime. With little money but endless compassion, she became a local legend of loyalty and love for abandoned animals. Photographed by Richard Avedon in 1963, William Casby was born into slavery in 1857 and lived to see freedom's full century. At 106, he gently holds his great-great-granddaughter, Cherry Stamps McCrae, a living bridge between two eras where one life spanned from bondage to a new generation's beginning. Eric Idle stands with George Harrison on the Tunisia set of Monty Python's Life of Brian in 1978. When the original backers quit, Harrison stepped in, formed Handmade Films, and bankrolled the shoot. He joked it was the most expensive cinema ticket ever. He even made a brief cameo watching his favorite comedians finish the film. A young Helen Mirren, just 20 years old, poses during her performance as Cleopatra at London's Old Vic in 1965. The bold white gown and confident gaze marked the start of a career defined by fearlessness. Even then, her stage presence hinted at the commanding actress she would become. President Jimmy Carter watches with a smile as blues legend Muddy Waters performs at a White House picnic in 1978. Beside him stands guitarist Bob Margolin, part of Waters' band. Carter, a longtime fan of blues music, often invited musicians to the White House, blending politics with pure American sound. Dorothy Counts sits rigid as boys mock her at Charlotte's Harry Harding High School, 1957. At 15, she was among the first black students to desegregate North Carolina schools after Brown versus Board. Spat on, threatened, and refused protection, she left after 4 days, an image that revealed the cruelty of resistance. A playful mother and daughter share a light-hearted moment in front of the camera around 1900. Their laughter and gentle gestures capture a rare glimpse of warmth in early photography, when portraits were often formal and still. The closeness between them makes this image feel timeless and full of life. Robin Williams sits in his home, controller in hand, lost in a video game in 1993. Known for his energy on screen, he was also a lifelong gamer who named his daughter Zelda after Nintendo's famous heroine. Away from the spotlight, moments like this showed his playful, childlike spirit. A man studies a cold bottle of Coca-Cola with doubt. In post-war France, the drink was new and controversial, first sold nationally in 1950 and seen by some as an American cultural push. Unions even protested its arrival. Curiosity won out, though, and Le Coca soon became a regular sight in cafes and shops. Thathlo Harjo, born in 1791, lived through over a century of change. He fought in both Seminole Wars, was forced west to Indian Territory in 1842, and later joined the 1st Regiment during the Civil War. By the time he settled in present-day Seminole County, Oklahoma, he had witnessed muskets give way to automobiles. He passed in 1904 at 113 years old. Paul McCartney stands outside St. John's Wood Station, buying a newspaper with headlines announcing John Lennon's death. The photo, quietly taken by Linda McCartney from their car, captures a moment of shock and grief, a Beatle reading the news of his friend's murder just hours after it shattered the world. George Harrison and Stevie Nicks sharing a moment together in 1978. Both icons of their time, one a Beatle who changed music forever, the other the mystical voice of Fleetwood Mac. The photo captures two worlds of rock-crossing paths bound by creativity, fame, and the magic of the 70s. A man rides a camel past the towering Soyuz rocket at Baikonur Cosmodrome in the Kazakh SSR, captured sometime in the 1980s. The image shows two eras crossing paths, the ancient desert traveler and the peak of Soviet space ambition, both symbols of endurance in their own time. Elvis Presley poses with gospel singer Cissy Houston in 1969. Cissy, mother of future icon Whitney Houston, was part of the Sweet Inspirations, the backing vocal group that often performed with Elvis. Three friends rest under the shade of an ice cream shop in Yakima, Washington, sometime in the 1940s. The soldier sits between two women, both effortlessly stylish in the summer heat. Behind them, a painted sign lists ice cream prices that feel like another lifetime. Pints for 20 cents, novelties for a nickel. A couple sits close at Le Monocle, a famed lesbian nightclub in Paris in 1932. The venue drew women who dressed in tuxedos, short hair, and sometimes a monocle, signaling freedom and style. Part of Montparnasse's queer nightlife, it was photographed by Brassai. Marie Curie rests in the Pantheon in Paris, her tomb sealed in 3 centimeters of lead. Even in death, the pioneering scientist continues to emit traces of radiation from her groundbreaking research with radium and polonium. The seal that guarded Tutankhamun's tomb, photographed before its discovery in 1923. For more than 3,000 years, this rope and clay imprint remained untouched, marking the threshold to one of history's most remarkable archaeological finds. Its intact condition confirmed that the Boy King's resting place had never been disturbed since ancient times. Amy Peterson examines freshly bottled champagne in 1933, wearing a steel mesh mask for safety. The protective gear shielded workers from exploding bottles, a common risk during the bottling process when pressure inside the glass could reach dangerous levels. The seal guarding Tutankhamun's tomb, photographed before it was broken in 1923, had remained untouched for over 3,000 years. The rope and clay seal, still intact after millennia, symbolized the unbroken mystery of the Boy King's resting place, undisturbed since ancient hands last tied it shut. The seal guarding Tutankhamun's tomb remained untouched for more than 3,000 years. Bound by rope and stamped with the mark of the necropolis, it was discovered just as the ancient Egyptians had left it. When archaeologists finally broke it in 1923, they became the first people to enter the Boy King's resting place since antiquity. Buford Pusser stands tall, holding the wooden sticks that became his symbol of justice. Known as the fearless sheriff of McNairy County, he survived being stabbed 7 times, shot 8, and even run over by a car. Rosie Dorothy Burdish was only 7 when this photo was taken. She spent her days shucking oysters at the Varn and Platt Canning Company in Bluffton, South Carolina. Captured in 1913 by Lewis Hine, the image became part of his campaign exposing the harsh realities of child labor in America. An 18-year-old Diana Spencer strolls through London in 1979, pushing the child she cared for as a nanny. Long before becoming Princess Diana, she lived an ordinary life, working small jobs, sharing a flat with friends, and unknowingly walking toward a destiny that would soon captivate the entire world. John Lennon, quiet and tired after a long day, signed an autograph outside the Dakota Building in New York. The man standing beside him, smiling faintly, was Mark David Chapman, the same person who would end Lennon's life just hours later. This photo captures their brief, haunting encounter frozen in time. Wyatt Earp sits quietly in his Los Angeles home, 1923, a far cry from the dusty streets of Tombstone, where his legend was born. Once a feared lawman and gunslinger, his later years were filled with stories of the Wild West, retold to Hollywood writers who sought to capture the man behind the myth. Laura Bell Devlin stares wide-eyed in a Newark, Ohio police mugshot from 1947. Investigators said the 49-year-old killed her 75-year-old husband, dismembered him with a hacksaw, and tried to hide the crime, burning parts in a wood stove and disposing of the rest in their yard. The photo captures the unsettling calm after brutal violence. Diners enjoying lunch at Windows on the World, the restaurant perched atop the North Tower of New York's World Trade Center in 1976. Opened in 1976, it quickly became one of the city's most exclusive spots, offering breathtaking 107th floor views that made it more than just a restaurant. The old Cincinnati Main Library once stood on Vine Street, built in 1874 with 5 levels of cast iron stacks and a huge glass skylight that filled the halls with daylight. It held hundreds of thousands of books and quiet reading rooms. In 1955, it was demolished, its space later replaced by a parking garage. Mobsters shield their faces with hats during Al Capone's 1931 trial in Chicago. Reporters packed the courtroom, and witnesses feared being photographed. Capone wasn't tried for murder or bootlegging, but for tax evasion, a charge that finally stuck. He was convicted and sentenced to 11 years, later serving time at Alcatraz. Beneath the soil of a quiet Los Angeles yard, a gleaming mystery was found, a 1974 Ferrari Dino 246 GTS. Unearthed by 2 children in 1978, the buried car became an instant sensation. Investigations later revealed it had been stolen years earlier and hidden underground as part of an insurance fraud scheme. A young Bill Murray, dressed in a dark suit with a white carnation, photographed at the funeral of Elvis Presley in 1977. Just a few years before his breakout on Saturday Night Live, Murray's offbeat charm and expressive face already hinted at the comic legend he would soon become. A woman stands over a cast-iron stove, carefully pouring gravy in her modest Missouri kitchen, 1938. Her calm focus and steady hands reflect a time when every meal was made from scratch, every bite earned through patience and hard work during the years of the Great Depression. Satchel Paige sits calmly in a rocking chair before taking the mound for his final professional game in 1965. At 59 years old, he pitched 3 flawless innings for the Kansas City A's. To honor his age and legend, the team gave him a nurse and an easy chair in the bullpen. Charlie Chaplin, one of cinema's greatest pioneers, is seen here in one of the final photos of his life, taken in 1977. Then 88, Chaplin was living in Switzerland, where he spent his last years in quiet retirement with his wife Una and their children. Andrew Macaulay's haunting final photo shows him during his daring solo attempt to kayak nearly 1,000 miles across the Tasman Sea, from Australia to New Zealand. Battling rough waters and exhaustion, he disappeared just days before reaching shore. His kayak was later found drifting 30 miles from his goal, but he was never seen again. Steve Irwin steps into the arena at Australia Zoo, feeding a saltwater crocodile with one hand and cradling his infant son with the other. It was his birthday show in 2004. The moment sparked worldwide debate about safety. Irwin later said the baby was never in danger, and the act followed strict control. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow share a rare, intimate moment caught on film, a kiss between 2 outlaws bound by love and violence. Known as the infamous crime duo of the Great Depression, their romance burned fast and fierce, ending months later in a storm of bullets during a police ambush in 1934. Elvis Presley eats breakfast in uniform with his father Vernon and his grandmother Minnie May in 1959. He was stationed in West Germany with the U.S. Army's 3rd Armored Division. Despite fame, he served as a regular soldier and lived in Bad Nauheim with his family during his 2-year enlistment. A rare picture of Saddam Hussein at his 1963 engagement. Then 26, he was betrothed to Sajida Talfa, his cousin and childhood friend, whom he married the same year. Sajida later became Iraq's first lady. The couple would have 5 children, including Uday and Qusay, long before Saddam's rise to power reshaped the country. Frank Lucas stands outside Madison Square Garden, dressed in a $50,000 chinchilla coat and a $10,000 matching hat. It was the night of the Muhammad Ali versus. Joe Frazier fight in 1971. The lavish outfit turned heads, not just from the crowd, but also from the FBI, who began watching him closely after this appearance. Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu, Romania's longtime rulers, moments before their execution in Târgoviște on December 25, 1989. Once one of Eastern Europe's most powerful couples, they were captured after trying to flee during the revolution that ended decades of dictatorship. Jack Gilbert Graham, behind bars after planting a bomb on United Airlines Flight 629 in 1955. His goal was to kill his own mother for insurance money, but the explosion took 43 innocent lives. His scary calmness never faded, even when he faced execution in the gas chamber 2 years later. Lepa Radic, only 17, stands moments before her execution in 1943. A Bosnian Serb who fought with the Yugoslav partisans, she was captured after a fierce battle near Gradina. Even under torture, she refused to reveal the names of her comrades. Behind the scenes of Godzilla, 1954. The man inside the suit takes a break, holding an umbrella beside his co-star. The monster's rough, scarred texture was modeled after the keloid burns of Hiroshima survivors. A British couple shares a joyful moment with their baby in the 1950s. The man, holding the child, smiles warmly at the camera while the woman beams beside him, captured in an era when mixed-race families were rare. A First Nations couple from Canada, photographed in 1886. The term First Nations refers to the Indigenous peoples of Canada, who are neither Inuit nor Métis. These communities have deep roots that long predate colonization, and today, over 600 recognized First Nations governments or bands preserve their culture, language, and history across Canada. Workers pose inside the massive tunneling machine used to build London Central Line in 1898. The line, now one of the busiest on the Underground, was dug mostly by hand, using picks, shovels, and endurance. During the London Blitz, families huddled together on the platforms of Elephant and Castle Tube Station, turning it into a makeshift bomb shelter. Beneath the city's chaos, people found brief peace, sharing stories, tea, and courage as explosions echoed above and the war raged on through the night. A police officer stands waist-deep in floodwaters outside a pharmacy in Ontario, 1974. The flood had swallowed much of the city, but he stayed put, calm and composed, guarding what remained. A worker stands atop the first cables of the Golden Gate Bridge in 1935, looking out toward San Francisco. Each strand beneath him would soon carry the weight of history. A young woman is carried out by officers after fainting from excitement during Elvis Presley's concert at the Chicago Amphitheater in 1957. The king of rock and roll had that effect. His voice, moves, and presence often sent fans into tears, screams, or, like here, complete emotional collapse. At the time, Jaffa was a hub of the citrus trade, famous for its sweet, seedless oranges with thick skins that made them perfect for export to Europe. Jewish settlers newly arrived in Ottoman Palestine often worked alongside Arab farmers in these orchards. Sophia Loren at her home in Rome, 1955. Before becoming an international film star, she posed for modeling photos like this, full of youth and confidence. Just a few years later, she would rise from small Italian productions to global fame. A U.S. soldier shares a brief moment of warmth with a dog amid the frozen chaos of the Battle of the Bulge, Luxembourg, 1944. The snow was thick, the air tense, yet this small handshake showed a rare softness, proof that even in war, kindness could survive the cold. A long line of jobless men waits outside a factory during the Great Depression, 1930s. Across America, scenes like this became a harsh symbol of struggle, millions desperate for work, each man clinging to hope that the next door might finally open. East German border guards peer through a broken section of the Berlin Wall, November 11, 1989, just 2 days after it fell. For the first time in 28 years, they looked freely into West Berlin, witnessing the joy, confusion, and disbelief that came with the sudden end of a divided world. Workers balance high above the ground as they remove the spiked crown from the Statue of Liberty in New York, 1938. The delicate restoration was part of preparations for the upcoming World's Fair, a rare glimpse at the hands that maintained one of America's most enduring symbols of freedom. A Wild Vision from 1908, an illustration from H.G. Wells's sci-fi novel The War in the Air, shows a monorail gliding over the English Channel as airships and steamers pass below. Wells often guessed at future tech. The Channel never got a monorail. Its real link, the rail tunnel, opened in 1994. Ines de Courcelles sits at the wheel of a Paris taxi in 1909, among the city's first licensed women drivers. She earned both coachman and chauffeur certificates, rare for the time. Paris cabs were mostly Renault AGs, symbols of modern life. Many doubted women behind the wheel. She proved them wrong. Elevator attendants lined the halls at Marshall Field and Company, Chicago, 1947. The store ran its own charm school, teaching operators posture, diction, and how to greet every floor with a smile. Marshall Fields had more than 70 elevators after the war, and these polished women were the store's moving welcome. Gas stations in the mid-1980s posted prices under $1, often around 84 cents for leaded and 89 cents for unleaded, as seen here. A global oil glut and the 1986 price crash pushed costs down across the U.S. Drivers filled up cheaply. Leaded gasoline soon disappeared as rules phased it out. Stockholm at dawn, 1967, Sweden's first day of right-hand traffic, known as Dagen H. Drivers paused at 5 a.m., then crossed to the other side as police directed crowds. The country swapped about 350,000 road signs overnight. Despite the confusion, accidents briefly fell because everyone drove slower and more carefully. A hunter stands with a punt gun, a boat-mounted shotgun built for market hunting. These cannons fired a pound of shot at once and could drop 50 ducks in a single blast. The recoil could shove a small boat backward. Laws in the late 1800s banned them as bird populations crashed. Tokyo, 1935. A soba deliveryman pedals one-handed, the other steadying a tower of trays on his shoulder. These cyclists learned balance from apprenticeships and practiced on quiet streets before tackling traffic. Orders stayed warm in lidded boxes, stacked by weight and destination. Motorbikes later replaced this style, but photos keep it alive. Diver Jim Jarrett steps into the Tritonia in 1935, a rigid, jointed walking suit built to keep out sea pressure. He descended to the wreck of the RMS Lusitania off Ireland, more than 300 feet down, and walked the seabed. The Suet's sealed metal joints let him return without decompression, proving deep dives could be safer. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on anything.